And joining us now is Arizona's Democratic Senator Mark Kelly, a former U.S. Navy pilot, astronaut, commander who now serves on the Intelligence and Armed Services Committees. Senator, thank you very much. Good to see you. And first, I guess I want to ask you about the U.S. military. Do you think that they can provide a useful role sending active duty troops to the southern border? Do you think they're needed?
Well, Andrea, right now at the border in Arizona, I represent a border state. Border security is incredibly important to me. When you look at the numbers today compared to where they were at the end of Trump's first administration, they're lower now. So these are border crossings. The border, it gets chaotic at times. The numbers go up, they go down. What we need are lasting solutions to the border security problems that we face. And we're going to get that, hopefully, by Democrats and Republicans working together on this issue to provide some lasting solutions.
And you have been such an advocate for a bipartisan immigration law. Of course, we know what happened last time around because really after the suggestion of former President Trump at the time, to some of his allies in the Senate, in the House, that's when that was unraveled.
Yeah, that was unfortunate. But I think what that demonstrated is that there is support on both sides of the aisle. Democrats and Republicans can work together on this, so we can accomplish something that's pretty significant. It's much better to do it this way than for Republicans just to go it alone on this. So if we work together, we can come up with some border security solutions. We could protect dreamers and farm workers and doing those other things that will provide a safe and secure border. We can't have chaos at the southern border. We've seen this, time and time again, from one administration to another. Policies change. But in the Senate, anyway, right now, there seems to be, the support there for us to work together. So I just sent a letter to Senator Thune. There's about a dozen of us, stressing that we can accomplish something significant on this issue.
Let's talk about Pete Hegseth. You're on the Armed Services Committee. The senators now have, according to Jack Reed, an affidavit from his former sister-in-law. NBC News was the first to report this, saying that his behavior toward his second wife caused her to be fearful for her safety. His ex-wife said that there was, quote, no physical abuse in their marriage. Through his lawyer, Hegseth has denied any abuse. As a member of the committee, though, that doesn't deny the specifics in this affidavit, which stand uncontested. And I want to ask you whether, with action on the floor, perhaps after a cloture vote, which would just needs a simple majority on Hegseth, you think he'll still be confirmed?
Well, he shouldn't be confirmed, Andrea. And I think anybody who watched our committee hearing last week, a couple weeks ago, on Pete Hegseth will realize he wasn't being transparent with the committee. He's got a lot of personal issues. Even beyond that, he's not qualified for the job. This is probably one of the hardest jobs in government. You're managing one of the biggest enterprises on the planet. He doesn't have the management experience. He doesn't have the leadership experience. And on top of that, those personal issues that you pointed out are just disqualifying. I asked him specifically about a number of issues with regards to drinking excessively, how he, dealt with his employees and being drunk in front of employees. And he didn't really want to answer the questions. I made it very simple. Are these things true or false? The affidavit you're talking about goes through a list of a bunch of other occurrences in great detail. So I think it's clear, certainly is clear to my Democratic colleagues. I think it also is to some of the Republicans. We'll see if they actually get there on this, but that he is not the right person for this job.
Senator Reed made it clear today, Democratic former chairman, ranking member, of course, made it clear today that this affidavit, this witness had been presented, talked to the FBI, but that her information, the sister-in-law's information, was not in the background check. Is the FBI being completely open with the committee?
Well, I did not have the opportunity to see the FBI background check. That was just for the ranking member and the chairman. It should have been made available, I think, to everybody on the committee, especially when you consider Mr. Hegseth's issues. And that information, it would make sense that would have been included in an FBI background check, but like Senator Reid said, it was not.
And one more question about a Washington Post report today that NBC News has not independently confirmed that Tulsi Gabbard has a meeting with former Syrian leader Bashar al-Assad when he was in power that lasted as long as 3 hours, and that it was not reported that way back, through officials, because her House staff got her to cover it up, or they covered it up, and that in some way it was reported as a much shorter meeting. Any meeting, some say, was inappropriate without proper authorization.
Well, I discussed Congresswoman Gabbard's trip to Syria, specifically about what she learned when she was there, and cases of Assad using chemical weapons against his population. I was unaware of the length of the meeting. This is new to me, but I will certainly look into it. And when you're trying to be, as a member of Congress, when you're trying to be transparent about your travel and who you met with, I think if it is true, I think that's something we need to look into. I mean, a 3-hour meeting with Assad is something I would be concerned with. But beyond that, we've got other issues. Her views on Edward Snowden, pardoning Snowden, her views that have changed recently on FISA and our ability to get intelligence from foreigners overseas, making a recent 180 on this. These are some of the things that concern the committee, and we still have not scheduled, her confirmation hearing. We'll be doing that in the near future.